New Zoom feature. You got to accept the recording. All right. Good morning, everybody. Scott Dolch, Executive Director, Connecticut Restaurant Association. It's great to see everyone's, I guess, names on the screens. Not seeing so many faces, but seeing a good group here, a good core of folks trying to give you guys an update here on Monday, August 9th, kind of where we stand, what's going on, and here for Q&A at the end. If we don't get to a question or answer, and where we think we're headed as an industry, as a state level and a federal level. So we'll talk a little bit about the tax relief program, which is a great, it's not ideal. It's not exactly what I wanted, but at the end of the day, it's still an opportunity to benefit and support our industry. So we are truly appreciative of what this is, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. We'll talk about the mask mandate. I didn't put on here, but we'll talk a little bit about worker shortage. It's still a real challenge that you guys are faced with and where we go from here. And then obviously the RRF, we'll kind of start on a federal side with replenishment, what we're hearing, what happened over the weekend, and what we're hoping for, obviously, to get that replenished. So I don't really need headshots today of who's speaking. It's just kind of going to be myself as we go forward. But we'll get started really just kind of what our program is going to be. I'll give an association update, national update. I'll talk about the RRF. We'll go into the tax relief for the industry, mask mandate, worker shortage, and then Q&A and anything that I missed that you guys need help on, obviously using the chat to ask questions. So just a quick update, CRA. My staff who is on here, as you guys all know, with Yvette, Jennifer, Emily, and Allison are working as hard as they can to help you guys on questions you have individually with your restaurants, kind of what's going on that they can do. But, we have obviously surpassed, we still have well over 1,800 members. That number is growing by the day. I think we've gained 115 new members in 2021, which is phenomenal. You probably are seeing Allison and others reach out to you if you haven't paid your dues. We understand if financially that's a challenge for you. We just want to keep you posted on that. Obviously, your dues go a long way into helping us have an association and being able to support you and be kind of the voice of this industry moving forward. So we appreciate all of those that have been able to pay their 2021 dues. Please understand too, this is, we changed that model a couple of years ago. It is $400 a year to be a member. Whether you are a restaurant or an allied member, and is additional $200 for every additional brick and mortar that you have. Other states do it, and we used to do it based on gross annual sales. We don't think that's fair. We want to make sure everyone is eligible to be a member to a little more than $1 a day. If we don't get that money back to you 5 or 6 times based on the benefits that we provide, we're not doing our job. So I start there. For allied members, anyone that's on the call, we are doing a Zoom call on Thursday, quarterly calls that Yvette and the team are leading, just trying to help the allied members make sure you guys are connecting with our restaurants, what you're offering, benefits, things that you're trying to help the restaurants, whether it's from a hood cleaner to insurance, to law firms, whatever it might be, POS systems. We're trying to make sure we continue to connect with our allied members and what access they have to our restaurants to help you guys save dollars and help you run your business. Serve Safe Manager classes. I can't stress this enough. If you need certifications, we run pretty much the majority of Serve Safe classes in the state. And Jennifer Conklin-Smith on our team has been doing a phenomenal job. If you go to ctrestaurant.org/servesafe, you can see all of the classes. We've actually added 2 new classes in Fairfield County for the first time. We have one in Westport I think August 23rd, and that Monday, 2 weeks from today. And then we have one in November down in Stanford. So we're trying to, I know we've gotten a lot of asks about Fairfield County. How do we go take a class down there? So making sure you guys know, that we are trying to offer classes throughout the state. Our 2 instructors that teach our classes have one of the highest passing ratings, I think about 91, 92%. So if you're going to spend $160 to $180 per class, that's what it costs. Depending upon if you're a member, it's $160, non-members are $180. We want to make sure you're not paying additional money afterwards because you didn't pass the test. So our classes are some of the best in the country, and that's coming from ServeSafe data. But please make sure you're taking a peek at our ServSafe to make sure your staff, yourself, and others are certified. Obviously, that certification expires after a number of years, and making sure you're staying up to date. So, any classes in the Waterbury area, Diane, as I see quickly, I know we have looked out that way. Obviously, venues or others, and we've had restaurants that have tied to us. I think we have definitely hosted some things out that way. I know Plainville, not too far away, other times. So I don't have the calendar in front of me, but we'll be sure, make sure you check our calendar. And if you guys have a venue or someone's like, hey, we're happy on a Monday, we're closed, we have a big space for folks, we're always looking for locations that would be willing to host classes. And then we give discounts to those specific venues as best we can for their staff. Because we do that. Obviously, some of our top, obviously Cisco, typically we've done in Rocky Hill, down in New Haven. We're looking at Fairfield County, New London County, Hartford County, we have pretty well covered as well. So just wanted to make sure ServSafe is always talked about, to make sure you guys know that we are the source for that. And then I know we had our golf tournament, but just to keep the date on the calendar, I know everyone wants to be worried about this variant, but December 6th, we are moving full steam ahead to have an incredible gala at Foxwoods on December 6th, which I have a slide for that as well right here. So, hoping, fingers crossed, that we hit a little blip here and then we start to go back to where we were to be able to have this event. We are already starting planning. We have the bigger ballroom this year that we've never had before. Hoping to have well over, hopefully close to 1,500 guests. We had 800 back in 19. But this is a celebration of our industry, a chance for you guys. Really, it's going to be about less than $400 a couple. You can bring your significant other, which includes all you can eat, drink, and that would also include a hotel night stay at Foxwood. So a night, definitely a night out, looking at tables and things and ways to bring your whole staff out and support our industry in a bigger way. So I'm looking forward to this on December 6th. Obviously, staying positive as we move forward here where we are with the Delta variant. So. But we will continue to keep you guys posted by the end of the month on ticket sales, sponsorships, other opportunities to get involved in our craziest event. All right, enough about the CRA, shifting over to a national update. I know that the big underlying question right now is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and we'll start there. So you guys can see, this is kind of a slide we had from last month. Nothing has changed. We know that $28.6 billion has already been used up in the RRF. The SBA did a phenomenal job in a quick turnaround time to be able to distribute, over 100,000 applicants their money. They didn't go through banks. It wasn't like PPP. So to be able to do that in a timely fashion was phenomenal. And I know 1,303 Connecticut businesses are grateful for that. You can see that number there, $301 million. That went back to our state, went back to these businesses. But for me, while that's the silver lining here, the challenge is the 2,066 businesses that have not received funding and are waiting for more money. And that is not any different than any other state across the country right now. And the challenges that we're faced with to get this, what's called replenished, trying to replenish the fund. The good thing is we know what that number really is. I know that, since we last had a Zoom call, there had been the RRF Replenishment Act of 2021. There was a House bill and a Senate bill, co-sponsors, but obviously trying to get both, of these, I guess the divisiveness of DC right now to get everyone to come together and replenish it. But again, we are trying to stay top of mind. As I say to every restaurateur that texts me in the morning or calls that, I get it. You're looking across, you can tell who received funding. The SBA did release all of the 1,303 businesses in Connecticut, but all of the 100,000 plus businesses that received funding, what their total amount was. That went public, so people know, and I know the frustration of those that didn't get it and why they didn't get it. Why did somebody else get it? A lot of questions that I think we're going to get answers hopefully in the time, but I'm not here to dwell on. I don't think it helps us as an industry to point fingers and say they got it, I didn't get it. Well, this is just not fair. I agree. It's winners and losers with the way that this was set up. But the only way to change that is not to really point fingers, but to talk about how important this industry is, how many jobs, how much tax dollars, how much revenue is generated across the country in trying to get this replenished. It is talked about down in DC. The Replenishment Act, more Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans' pushback is they don't want, to take out more money out of Treasury. Inflation's already going to be too big. They've already done this, so they're going to stop, allowing any more money to be pushed. The Democrats are saying, no, we need this. The Republicans definitely agree that we need it. So I'm not here to blame Republicans or Democrats. This is about, everyone understanding how vital these dollars are for those 2,000 businesses in Connecticut. I guess I speak for that. So I will give everybody an update over the weekend, because we do have a new update, whether it means a whole lot. But Chuck Schumer, using social media, the Senate majority leader on the Democratic side, put up a post last night, actually, or yesterday at 1:29 p.m. I fought to deliver critical relief for restaurants with the American Rescue Plan, but the job is not done. I'm proud to stand with Senator Cardin, Senator Cardin is from Maryland, a Democrat, to push legislation that will provide $48 billion in additional funds for the SBA's restaurant program. That's a big deal. So a couple things in that tweet that I took from it. One, Senator Chuck Schumer has not tweeted about, really replenishment since we've been asking for it, since obviously all the money ran dry. So to have that tweet make some noise, obviously, could it be a political ploy? All of that could still be in play here. But we know that the other area that was really striking to me was the $48 billion. He didn't put 60, which is what the replenishment fund. We know that 47.7 billion is what makes up the difference of people that didn't get funded across the country. So it's not 60 billion where, that was the Replenishment Act, as they were trying to say, hey, let's get to 60. There's people that didn't apply. But we know people that didn't receive money and that applied and went through the whole process fairly. And that's about 48 billion. So for the fact that he put that in his tweet is very interesting to me, because I think that it opens up a conversation about maybe they don't go to 60, maybe they do 48, but 48 gets us to that number where all those 2,066 businesses in Connecticut would receive funding. It wouldn't be a hesitation. It would just be SBA once that would get signed off on. So that's the first good news over the weekend, where this isn't dead. I know that a lot of people have texted me and said it's gone quiet, and we think it's going to go dead. Getting Schumer to tweet that in the afternoon is a great thing. Also, I got a note from National late last night that on Saturday, the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurial Chair, which is Senator Cardin from Maryland, with Senator Wicker, which is a Republican from Mississippi, with Chuck Schumer, and Lisa Murkowski, who's a Republican from Alaska. You can see the bipartisanship. What they tried to do on Saturday on the floor of the Senate was to pass a $48 billion RRF replenishment bill, not 60 billion, a 48 billion in consent. So a unanimous consent motion. So understanding legislation, the only way that you can consent pass something, which means you pass it immediately in the Senate through consent, which is very difficult to do. It's almost impossible to do. But you can only have one senator out of the 100 that we have that just says, nope, I'm not for this right now. We need to go back to the table. You don't need majority. You only need one person to say, nope, I'm not passing it consent wise. It dies. That's what happened. It did die, but as it is difficult, as you can see there, at the same time, it serves that they're drawing attention to it. They're putting it out on the floor. They're trying to show that these restaurants need help, and so we'll see what that does on Saturday going into this week. They are looking at, another August recess in the Senate. All of that is, this is the timeliness of this, the challenge. I do say to folks that I do think the Delta variant across the country, if you want to look at the silver lining, is it shows that restaurants aren't out of the woods and they need the support, and the ones that didn't receive RRF funding need it more than ever. So we're trying to message that. I think in Connecticut, as I tell folks, it's a lot more challenging for me because we have the support. Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, our 5 delegates that are in our state, 5 other House representatives have all said that they support a form of replenishment to the RRF. So, it's hard for me to carry the flag outside the 4 walls of Connecticut. I am trying to do it. I am happy to talk to any senator And Rand Paul killed it. Thanks, Jonathan. Letting you know why it was killed. But I'm trying to do what I can, working with the National Restaurant Association, Matt Walker, Sean Kennedy, Mike Watley, and Tom Benet, the CEO, their team, whatever needs to be done in my end. Because I know how vital those 2,000 businesses are counting on those dollars. Is I know Jonathan is one of them that is not receiving it as of right now. So we will continue to push. I ask that everyone on there, and Jonathan has already beat me to it. If you received a text this morning, 52886, if you text replenish to that number, you will get sent a quick email. It'll take about a minute of your time. You will just talk about the replenishment and send that off to your state senator, your two state senators, obviously in Blumenthal and Murphy, but also your delegate of your zip code that you put in. We're just trying to make as much noise and continue to make noise. I also would lean on the 1,300 businesses that received it. While you're gracious and grateful that you did receive it, think about the others that didn't and what you can do to make sure that you do everything you can in our voice to push that this needs to be, for everyone that was eligible, not for only, 33% of the eligible businesses that receive funding. So, or 37% in Connecticut. So, asking those that have received it to step up and be loud in helping us get this across the finish line. So, that's, on a federal update on RRF, that's where we are. It's been very quiet throughout the summer. But again, there was some noise this weekend with the consent opportunity. There was some noise with Schumer's tweet. Where we go from here, there's the infrastructure bill that's trying to get done. There's other priorities on the table down in DC. They're not just talking about restaurants. I get that. I think everyone else should understand that, but we can't stop having a voice down there because it is so important that we do what we can, to help get this done for our industry across the country, but obviously in Connecticut. So the only other thing on a federal side, unrelated to this, I know National sent out a note about PPP forgiveness, a little bit more of a streamlined process. Catherine Marks actually sent me a note early this morning, making sure that if you have $150,000 or less in PPP, it's a very streamlined, easier process. While that's great, the banks had to opt in. So I'm shifting over to PPP, making sure that as you work on, the PPP forgiveness portion, if you're going through your second draw of PPP and you're working on your forgiveness, make sure work with your bank and make sure that they have opted in to do that process. Don't just take the National's note and saying, oh, I'm just going to use this form. You have to make sure that there's not as many banks right now in Connecticut that have opted in. We're pushing that. Catherine is doing that as well. But just make sure you're getting your paperwork in, you're doing everything that's needed. You're working with your accountant. If you need help with that, please reach out to us. We can definitely put you in contact with people to make sure that you get that fully forgiven and you don't miss a deadline or whatever else. The last thing you want to do is to get a significant amount of dollars in PPP and then you owe it back because of a technicality. So I just wanted to bring that up on a federal side because the PPP is obviously federal dollars, making sure you know your timeline of forgiveness and when you have to get it in by. The sooner you can get it forgiven, you can move on. If you've used that money up, I highly recommend that you start looking at that over the next few weeks because I know that's coming up for some. So I thank Catherine for sending me that note this morning. So I'm just looking to the left. If there are any other questions on a federal piece, I know ERTC is out there as well. I think the National Restaurant Association sent a note about tip wages and how you use for ERTC. Your accountant should know that, or we can help provide more guidance on that. There's also in the infrastructure bill would eliminate ERTC in the fourth quarter. That's a worry that we have. We're pushing to try to allow you guys the ERTC dollars, employee retention tax credit, for people that don't know what that acronym is. That is a huge amount of money. You can still go back and go after ERTC dollars from earlier in the year. I even think from last year, making sure you look at that. Besides PPP, besides RRF, I love all these acronyms. The employee retention tax credit is helped a lot of the businesses that I look at this call right now that are on here, making sure that you guys, if you need help and contacts, please reach out to us. We'll put you in touch to make sure you go after those dollars to help you, and the biggest part of this is about survival and getting to the other side of this pandemic. All right. Shifting over to our state side and what's happened at the Capitol. So we talked a little bit about this last month, but I really want to drive home where we are with this and where we've come and the good about all this. So tax relief for restaurants, caterers, and more. So this past session, as you guys know, was a very difficult session because we weren't able to be in the building. Everything was on Zoom calls. I think I had millions of different Zoom calls with different committees talking about how we help this industry. I want to give a little bit of praise to the House Democratic leadership, led by, Speaker Ritter and Jason Rojas, and also Sean Scanlon in the Finance Committee. From the beginning of this, I want to say was probably a conversation we had in early March when session was going on about how we can help restaurants beyond just, looking at federal dollars, looking at kind of the grant programs that the state had put out, the CARES Act that, Commissioner Lehman and others had been doing. They wanted to do their part. They wanted to help. We started a conversation about the 1% that you guys, the 7.35 versus 6.35, kind of went down that avenue of opportunities to possibly keep all that. Then we looked at, maybe they financially, that wasn't obviously a reality at the end of the day, but they never stopped pushing in the budget negotiations throughout the end of session of trying to find a way to give back to this industry. And they were successful. I also want to thank the Republicans and leadership, Vinnie Candelora, of making sure this was top of mind for him when the budget negotiations came around. This was not something that just was definitely going to get done. I know it's not perfect. It doesn't include drinks. I know people are like, what? Like, I'm a bar. There's a lot that we push for. But at the end of the day, it's still a significant amount of money that will go back to helping restaurants. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget, in most normal legislative sessions, we aren't passing tax relief for an industry. We're usually fighting off tax increases. So let's look at that on a bigger scale of what this means. So what happened, what passed in the budget implementer was an opportunity for all the majority of our industry to be eligible for a tax relief for a week that actually started a week ago. So there'll be a lot of text on the next page. I apologize, but I just want to get it all out there so you guys know. So the DRS sent this out. There's an actual form on the DRS. I think that can put the link up as we continue to talk. It actually has all of this language, but I'm going to go into it a little bit. So we talked about the NAICS code. If you guys remember the 3.5 times. If you guys don't mind just staying on mute, apologize. So thank you. So you guys remember the NAICS code, the 72 NAICS code? That was really the sector 72 that defined like restaurants, caterers, people that really serve food, was the majority of what you did. That was a conversation we had back during the second draw of PPP. So when they gave 3.5 times your payroll monthly, as opposed to 2.5 times, it was defined by the NAICS code 72. That's where we went to the table with legislative leaders at the state level and said, that's how you can define our industry. It's not just about restaurants. It's about caterers, private event venues. Even I think breweries and others that serve food can fall into this category. That's how it's defined. So you have to be having a NAICS code of 72 to be eligible for this program. If you start with that 72 number, when you look up your NAICS code, you are eligible to take advantage of this program. How this program works is, for the week, you get to choose a week. So you could either choose your last week, which ended 2 days ago on that Saturday. So August 1st through August 7th. You can choose that week. You can choose December 12th through December 18th, or you can choose May 15th through May 21st of next year. So you have a week that you have an opportunity that all the meals that you sell in your restaurant that you charge 7.35%, that 7.35% you get to keep. So what I mean by that is if you have a $100 bill that's all food related in a restaurant, I go there with my wife, our $100 bill then gets charged 7.35. That's $7.35 I get to keep as a restaurant if it falls within this week that you choose. So, as you look at the dollar figure, you obviously, the reason why we have 3 weeks on here was we know that not every restaurant in Connecticut is the same. We know that not all your weeks are the same. We know that on the shoreline, August 1st through August 7th in Mystic is probably your best week of the year when you compare these other 3 weeks. We also know in December, if I'm at, I was up at Tiger Belly Noodle Bar in Granby yesterday. Like, we know probably December, they're, a winter time type of restaurant. They have more sales and more takeout, more people coming in and hopefully dining in. That might be their best week. The May week is also an opportunity where sometimes you have a lot of graduations and other events. It all ties in. So if you have a graduation event on May 18th, upstairs at Union League Cafe in New Haven, it would fall into this, that the meals portion of this you would get to keep. So you have an opportunity to really choose that week. I see on here, Department of Revenue on Friday. We'll get into that in a second. I just want to go back about choosing your week. So the biggest thing is, you guys know, it's in the end of this, that you guys are the ones that file your OS 114 forms. You'd usually do it right at the end of the following month. So if you're looking at the month of August, you're filing your tax payment and what you owe in taxes. That OS 114 form, you're doing it by the end of September. So by September, I think 31st of 2020, you have to file your August tax. That would be when you choose based on what DRS is saying. So you can't wait until May and go, oh, May was better than August, I'm going to use the May number. That's unfortunately not true. It's actually that you have to make sure that you choose it by September. If you look at your numbers, obviously you guys are better than almost any other business I know of that know how your numbers fall out, of whether this August is going to be your best versus May. But you have to do it. So December by the end of January, and by the end of June for that May of next year, you would have to choose it. So sellers are encouraged to monitor the DRS website, that they're expecting even more information. I know we've already gone through a week. This is why I wish I would have gotten out a couple of weeks ago. But again, trying to work with DRS. This is a new program. They've never really done this before. I give Mark Boughton, Commissioner Boughton, a lot of credit. They've been on calls with us. They want to help support this industry. I see that on here that Paula said that you called DRS and they said that liquor was included. I am going to continue to get clarity on that. As you can tell, by the way, so there's a lot of confusion on this, of whether it's just meals or it's meals and beverages. We tried to push that it needed to include both. The way that it was written in the implementer was it was meals. It didn't have the word beverages. However, OFA, Office of Finance, when they did the reporting and how much the number was going to be, it included beverages. So there's still a lot of what it includes, what it doesn't. I have a call into Commissioner Boughton's team trying to get some clarity on this. I'm hopeful that it includes beverages, but right now we read it as it only includes meals. We are going to push that it hopefully includes both. But right now we know it includes something. We are still trying to get clarity, because and as much as it should be easy, where people are saying to me, when they just tell you, or I'm getting mixed communication. It really was. The way the bill was written was kind of confusing, because all they put in the language was meals. They didn't put beverages, but their intent was to include both, because that 1% includes meals and beverages. And I know for bars that rely so heavily on alcohol, like being able to include that would drastically increase the amount of money you get to keep. I understand that. I'm going to continue to do what I can to see if we can make sure it includes that. But again, I don't want to give false information, because the way that it's written, it says a seller, as you can see at the top, and making sellers of meals aware. So what defines a meal is what Nicole and I have been trying to get clarity on, and we will continue to get clarity on. But I just wanted to make sure today, everyone that's on this call knows that at least at some point, if you do a week of sales and you do, let's say, $80,000 in food costs for that week, times 7.35%, you're looking at, $5,000 or $6,000 that you get to keep. Is it this gigantic number? Is it a RRF dollar? No. Is it maybe the $10,000 to $30,000 CARES Act number? It's not, but it's every little bit helps. And understand that this is directly related to the efforts of the CRA that we push for throughout legislation, with House leadership on both sides of the aisle, obviously the Democratic leadership, of getting this across the finish line for us. So understand that there isn't nothing against the Retail Association or other entities like businesses that are receiving tax relief. This is directly because of the efforts of us. And I give Nicole, and I give Dave Ritigliano, and I give Dan Miser, and a lot of other parts of our team so much credit of making sure that we continue to stay on this throughout the session. because at the end of the day, it looked bleak even going into the end of session that this wasn't going to get done. And then we got it into the budget implementer. So understand that, if you get $4,000, $5,000 that you get to keep and don't have to give back to the DRS, like that's still helping you. Is it going to save your industry? Save your restaurant? Maybe not, but could it do some help and some good as you guys look to try to make your way out of this tough time? I hope that people understand that. Obviously, the 1% for a year and other ways, we are going to continue to talk about our industry and how we need to support it on a financial level, how we need the state to continue to support it. But I feel we have their ear. I feel that they understand how important this industry now is than ever before. I think they took our industry for granted prior to the pandemic, in the sense of it being a $9 billion industry, 160,000 jobs, the tax dollars that we provide. And we are continuing to look that they don't want to see closures. They don't want to see businesses not make it. So we want to make sure that you guys understand how important this is. It doesn't matter whether you're a member or not a member. It doesn't matter at all. And that wasn't what this was about. I hope that people that are not members of the CRA realize these are things that we do every single day. And where I talk about $400 in membership dues a year, if you get $4,000, that would pay your dues for 10 years. These are the things that we work on. There's obviously pieces of legislation that we push back to make sure that you don't have bad scheduling bills or increases in tip credit or other things that maybe people don't think that are going to happen, but they surely are. We fight them every day. But this is a tangible response to the efforts that we gave to our state, besides the CARES Act dollars that Commissioner Lehman and I went toe to toe with to get over 1,800 businesses between $10,000 and $30,000. These are the efforts of my team working tirelessly. So when people say, I don't know if I see the value in the CRA, if you're a NAICS code 72, I would look you in the eye and say, wow, like if you're not considering supporting us, like it's a little bit of a slap in the face. And I think you should say that to your peers if you are a member, about here's a tangible response to what we did. And yes, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But we will continue to work to try to get to Paula's question and to others people's questions. We will continue to work to get you as much dollars back to savings as you possibly can, because we know how important it is right now and what you're going through. I'm trying to push that through in the media every single day. So I stop there. I take a breath. Just looking at John's question. So you can't wait until May, to make a decision. Will it be taxed as income? Ken, great question. Something that we're still trying to get clarity on of, if you understand, most of the, obviously PPP is not a taxable expense. We're trying to see if this would be something that you would be taxed on later on as you do your filing your taxes. All questions we're still trying to get clarity on. We were trying to get this program rolled out first, but we will do everything we can so what's being taxed on and what's not as you get closer to the end of the year when you file your taxes for 2021. But again, understand that we are trying to do what we can to get these answers as quickly as we can, but we want to be accurate in what we provide. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, we heard that it might include beverages and DRS said this or that. We want to get full clarity. We know that meals are included. We know that right now, if you want to choose August 1st to the 7th, you had a great week let's say you're on the shoreline, you had a phenomenal week of food numbers, you're going to get a chance to keep that 7.35%. So you can run those numbers on meals. When you go to file your taxes for the state at the end of September, you will not have to submit whatever that dollar amount is, $1,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever that is, you will get the chance to keep that within your business. So I'll stop there on kind of the seller of meals on the taxes and kind of move on to just a couple other things that I know I want to get to, because Q&A, I'll allow people to ask some questions. So mask mandate executive order. Obviously use Mark's photo here from the Hartford Courant. It's a photo credit. I'm sure you get some credit. I use this photo because it is Mayor Elicker in New Haven with the governor. As you guys probably saw last week on Thursday, the governor issued an executive order 13A that allows towns and cities and towns and municipalities to implement their own mask mandates as they deem appropriate to their community. What does that really mean? That means that we're not having a state right now, state mandated mask mandate. We are looking at obviously a growth in numbers and hospitalizations, rise in positivity rate. So the governor said, I don't want to have a statewide. It's not the same in other parts of the state. He kind of did a little bit of a pivot of what he'd been doing prior to May 19th. And he allowed that it's putting it on the towns and the cities. What does that mean so far? We know that New Haven Mayor Elicker, as I use the photo, put it into effect today. So as of today in the city of New Haven, if you go down to eat or you go to a retail shop or you go to a grocery store, you need to have a mask on indoors. You could be fined $100. Love to see how they're going to mandate that and monitor, the fining. If I walk into a grocery store, I could be fined individually as a customer $100. But then also knowing as an employer in New Haven, if your employees are not wearing masks, you could be fined $100 per employee. That is effective today in New Haven. I am, as you guys can tell by my tone on here, I am still very hesitant. I understand that we've had the mask mandate. People have done it. I just, in my take, having 169 towns have the authority to do it makes my job a lot more difficult, as you can imagine, as opposed to dealing with state and the commissioner, but now having to deal with towns specifically and their own views. New Haven is the first town or city, to implement this mandate. So it's effective today. If you're in your restaurant today and you're opening in New Haven and you're on this call, let's say you open up in 20 minutes, people that enter your restaurant or your staff have to all be masked. Until they sit down to eat, the customers can take it off and go back to that same. If you're eating and drinking, you do not need to be able to you don't need to wear a mask, but it doesn't matter whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you have to have a mask on. Stanford, an update, Mayor Martin over the weekend said he expected to follow suit, possibly on Wednesday. We're still waiting for that. As I got notes from Stanford restaurateurs over the weekend through text messages. Those are kind of the two leading cities. Obviously, New Haven was the first. I'm not surprised. Just based on what I've seen, I know that Mayor Bronin in Hartford has looked at it. I know I talked with Mayor Cantor in West Hartford. They are highly recommending it, but they're like she said to me, it's very hard to monitor and mandate and police. She wants to not look to do it outside of the state-run buildings, the public entrance into a state municipality building. I think you have to have it, but she's putting it still right now. She's going to continue to monitor it, as are many other cities, mayors and first selectmen. What's my ask of each of you on here is you should have a relationship with your first selectman and your mayor of your town and reach out to their office today and say, what are you looking at? What are you thinking? I need to know, here's my take on it. Obviously, every restaurant is different. I have the Brewport side on here right now in Brewport that they're doing, guests must wear a mask when you enter in, and that's your decision. That's your business decision. You could have done that after the May 19th. My worry, and I'm just going to be clear and blunt, I told this to the governor directly. My worry with this process is less about, I think we can manage wearing masks. I think that, the frustration of people that are like, hey, I got vaccinated, why do I have to wear a mask? Yes, I hear that. But again, the bigger worry I have is lifting it. Right now, this goes into effect through September 30th, which is the emergency order of the governor. This executive order 13A goes through that time frame. I talked to Commissioner Lehman about it over the weekend. I believe they would have to extend it. So even if the governor got his orders extended beyond September 30th, they would have to extend this, which is still a good thing, because my fear is, let's say that we hopefully flatten the curve. This goes back down. The Delta variant is quiet, and a town just is like, you know what? We don't care that it's in a better place. We're going to keep the mask mandate and make it more difficult for businesses in that town that have to follow suit versus other towns, neighbors or whatever else, not having to do it. That's my fear, is kind of how you manage it down the road, and looking to lift it and when you lift it. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. If you hear of any towns or cities, or your own towns or cities that are looking to follow suit like New Haven, keep us posted. I think at the end of the day, again, it's going to be up to you as a business what you want to do. It's up to your staff. Unless you're in New Haven right now, you're the only city that you have to follow suit. That also, the other frustration, if you saw my article on the day I was quoted in, one of the areas where we push so much for vaccinations was back of house, your cooks, your line cooks and everything else, of how hard it is to wear a mask all day long and stand in front of a stove and a flame and having to cook food for 7-8 hours, and how tough that is and how grueling. And we saw an uptick in vaccinations of cooks and line cooks because of that. And now in New Haven, it doesn't matter. You have to put a mask back on. And that's where the frustration lies. Is, what I said to Commissioner Lehman is, we were using that as an incentive to help people get vaccinated because of how difficult it is in those conditions. Maybe wearing a mask as a server, a front of house, isn't as much of an ask. But again, those are all conversations I will continue to drive home. And right now you have the authority, if you're not in New Haven, to make a business decision. You can have just your staff wear masks, and tell the guest if you're vaccinated, or your choice. You could do what you want. You could do like Brewport here and say, everyone needs to wear a mask within Brewport, whether or not, it's in Bridgeport right now, doesn't have a mask mandate as of today. But again, that is on you and up to you, but that could change in the coming days based on where we are with numbers, where we are with this Delta variant, and what other towns decide to follow suit or not follow suit. So I'm not trying to make this a hostile conversation by any stretch. I just, at the end of the day, the other side of this, other questions that I'm getting, the towns and cities do not have any authority besides the mask. That's the only authority they have. And the governor is clear that in his executive order that this is the only mandate that they can implement. They can't say, you got to go back to 50%. You got to go back to spacing of tables. That is not part of this conversation. So please note that, as we have these conversations, that would only be a change in the state guidelines if we got there. Knock on wood, we don't get there. But this is all the farthest that a town can go is a mask mandate, as opposed to they can't go, oh, tomorrow in New Haven, you got to be 6 foot spacing. You got to have, 50% capacity inside. They can't do that. If they look to do that, please let me know. I will be sure to educate them that that is not this executive order. They can't overstep their bounds on that. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were clear and where we stood with all of this, moving forward. And I'll continue to, do media calls and interviews of what my thoughts are on all of this. Again, it's not as much of an ask, in my opinion, as a grocery store, a big box retailer, or a small boutique retail shop where you have to wear a mask the whole time. As a customer, you still are able to take it off when you're eating and drinking. And we've done this for so many months. I just know, we got away from it, which was great. And now we're kind of going back in, but we have to see how this variant plays out. Continue to answer questions as we go forward. And then kind of the next kind of topic, worker shortage. I know how much of a challenge it still is. I know they talked about Biden's big spin here on the job increases and unemployment rate going down, which is all good signs, but it didn't move the needle as much as we'd hope for the restaurant employees, especially in our state, as we still get those numbers. We saw an uptick, but I know that everyone on this call right now, especially down the shoreline, if you have college employees right now that are making up, your 60% of your staff load, you're in fear of them leaving for college, and who's going to backfill those jobs, and how you're going to survive and how you're going to manage. I get those calls every day. My staff gets them. I understand. Please note, though, we have, passed the demarcation point of, moving that $300 weekly stipend up. What do I mean by that? So the weekly stipend on the federal level of $300 ends on September 4th. If the governor wanted to do something unique and actually stop it sooner, he would have had to have done it prior to August 4th, because he has a 30-day window within the way the bill was written federally, that he would have had to give a 30-day heads up that they were going to stop it. So at the end of the day, the governor really can't do anything to move the date up. But, the only way that this thing gets moved back is on a federal level. And, I can tell you that the governor is not a fan of it. Our own governor said, I think that this needs to stop. I agree with him wholeheartedly, as you guys know. In the number of years that we've had unemployment in our history of our country, we've never had a federal stipend, additional stipend, even during the recession of 2008. So to have this now, we get it during the pandemic, we're beyond. I know we're in a variant, but all of our businesses are back open and jobs are aplenty. There's opportunities to go work. I know how much you guys are paying, the increases in staffing, the $13 minimum wage that went up on August 1st, just a reminder, make sure that, minimum wage in the state of Connecticut is now $13. All of those things are playing this role where we need to get people back to work. I think the governor, I said to him, you need to continue to message that September 4th date. So people start applying for jobs today, not on September 3rd or 4th. They start looking to get a job now, and we start to close that gap so you guys can survive this challenging time that you're in. And I think the last update that I kind of, have for this is, making sure that you guys aren't out of the woods right now. I'm doing as much media opportunities as I possibly can. I know I'll do a couple media calls after this webinar. If you guys are open and wanting to talk to media, I just highly stress you let me know if you need speaking points or kind of messaging points, but we need to make sure that we stay top of mind. Everyone thinks, oh, everyone's back at restaurants now. You guys are doing great. That's not the case. We all know that. We know that you might have 100% demand, but you have about a 50 or 60% staffing. You are trying to make it work. You're running around frantically, running your restaurant probably harder than you ever have. I also know that, the food costs are anywhere between 30 and 40% higher than they were pre-pandemic. Oils, plastics, paper goods, finding materials, getting deliveries, worrying about all the things that you've been stressed out for 18 months, and this is just adding to it. So I will continue to drive that home, where I think people, perception doesn't equal reality. The same way when we had outdoor dining, people were like, oh, the restaurants are doing great, look outside, when no one was inside. Like the same way when you pull up on a restaurant and there's a long wait, it might not be that you're at 100% capacity. You might only have 70% of your tables out because you don't have the staff to fulfill even at 70%. So I think that people, the customers and people of Connecticut need to know that you are not out of the woods. I get that. I think the next 6 to 12 months are going to be critical. That's why this tax relief support, to trying to push for the worker shortage, to know that the stipend is ending, to push people back to work, trying to figure out food costs and challenges there, what we can do on a national level to try to offset that, and working with our distributors as hard as we can to make sure that you guys aren't having to deal with this burden and pass it off to your customers to survive. Your margins are being squeezed. I get it. I hear it every single day. And I'm doing everything I can to help you survive. And, that's really the messaging that I wanted to lead with and kind of finish with today with the CRA is, we know what you're really going through. I need the media to understand that. I need legislators, I need the governor, and I need the people of Connecticut to know what you're still going through and help you get through this and what this variant and this challenge of this variant means.
Hey, I've been trying to get through and they've been busy. Or not busy, but not.
Still on mute. This isn't get off my soapbox here, but I want you guys to know that, we hear you loud and clear.
Right,
if we're not making enough noise, if you're like, Scott, you should go on, and do other radio, or need to do this, or help us with this story, or like, I need a quote, they're asking me, please reach out to us for media. We will help. My job is to keep us top of mind. We need to be on the front page of every newspaper every single day until we get through this pandemic. That's my viewpoint. I'm willing to do every media interview that needs to be done to tell our story. So people don't lose sight of how important financial support is on a federal level, on a state level, and job challenges and everything else that's out there. So as I continue to look at kind of questions that are coming in, so I'm going to go to Q&A. What happens to nightclubs, Christina? Great question. I guess it's a dancing back with masks on, based on what the rule is. So I'd love to see how the mayor responds to that. There's a lot of unintended consequences of just putting in a full mandate. May an employer legally ask an employee for proof of vaccination? I lean on, I don't think Ryan O'Donnell is on this morning, but I do know that there are things that you can do as an employer, and asking certain things. I know there's HIPAA laws, but I don't think HIPAA laws tie back to the vaccination. So there are things that you can ask for and proof when it goes with COVID, as opposed to normal times. But let's get some clarity on that event. We can reach back out to you, Jody. Here's, the helpful stuff from the National Restaurant Association, put up, about the mandatory vaccine policies as well. Moving into winter. Great to see you, Rob, on here. Third-party delivery. Yes, I want to be clear about the commission caps, and I don't even know if anybody's on, but I've had some conversations with DoorDash and others. Yes, there's other states that everyone sees from afar and thinks that, oh, they capped delivery fees at 15% or 20. And yes, it's better for their state than it is in Connecticut. I would actually beg to differ. There's a lot of language that's gotten done in those caps that played a huge role in really not making it any different. And what I mean by that is they're going to pass it off, whether it's to the business or the customers. There's like a Philadelphia fee in Philadelphia, an extra 10% because of the caps. We are trying to do what we can. Rob, I don't disagree that we need to stay top of mind with this and find creative solutions to help you offset it. If we do get even worse into, I guess I will at least start with, this is the big question I get on, do we think we're going to have rollbacks in size of events and the weddings and 50% capacity? I don't want to say never, never, but I also want you guys to know my conversations with Commissioner Lehman have been incredible in the fact that we are in a different place, even with this COVID Delta variant, than we've ever been. And what I mean by that is, yes, we have 180 hospitalizations, but we also have 81% of adults in the state of Connecticut that have gotten at least one shot in the arm. We know that the numbers speak for themselves. So if you have been vaccinated, the chance of you getting the virus is very slim. I think only about 900 people that have actually contracted the virus and tested positive that have already had a vaccine. Only about 100 of those have actually been hospitalized. 20, yes, have died, but out of those 20, all of them are over the age of 75, and all of them had other challenges besides the COVID virus that caused them to die. And it's all sad and it's very unfortunate. But I think that the difference and why I lead with that is we all need to understand that we have a vast majority of our population in the state of Connecticut that have had a vaccine, have been well past that 14-day window. So the chance of them getting 1,500 hospital beds filled and overflooding our hospitals and having to reel back restrictions and getting strict is very slim. And it's just sheer numbers. Like, we don't have full herd immunity, but we aren't where we were back in November, where we didn't have a vaccine and we were looking at a second wave and we're like, how do we stop this? And it went up exponentially. We had a day, last week where we dropped hospitalizations. Yes, positivity rate is over 3% on Friday. Mondays are the worst day, as you guys know, because Mondays are Saturday, Sunday, Monday numbers all added into one. So the media loves to be like, whoa, we had a jump of 30 hospitalizations. If you guys remember back in November, December, January, we had jumps of like 100. We were getting well over 1,000 hospitalizations in a very short window. Yes, we're going to see a little bit of a spike, but I also lean on that Commissioner Lehman has sided with me. When you look at what happened in the UK, we are behind them with this variant. They are starting to flatten out over in Great Britain because they didn't have this huge surge of hospitalizations. We're not going to have that as well. So there is zero, and this is direct quote from Commissioner Lehman as of Sunday night. There is zero conversation about restrictions beyond mask mandate at the governor's office. Zero. And the reason is because of the fact of what we've done in vaccinating our population and getting as many people vaccinated. We hope to continue to get more, and why I will continue to push that so hard. But for those of you that are fearful, especially I look at the caterers on this call, and I feel for you because you're not at the beck and call of a restriction of 50% indoor or whatever else. You're at the beck and call of a person hosting a wedding and saying, I just don't feel comfortable. We're going to hold back and do it next year. You lose that revenue. I feel for you. I would just state with them that we are in a much different place to have a 300-person indoor wedding, and the safety precautions that you guys go through and your staff wearing masks, and maybe they don't, whether they need to or not, all of those need to be in your conversations. And I'm hopeful that this is, a little bit of a spike, but we flatten out sooner rather than later with this variant. And we get back to, a better sense of normal like we were in late May and early June. And I just think that that's the conversation we need to continue to have. I think the third-party delivery, I hope we don't have to have, we'll continue to have conversations. The chance of me getting that passed also, Robert, as you asked that question, it wouldn't have gotten done until after probably end of session when we were already out of business restrictions. and it really wouldn't have played really a benefit role in a lot of ways. And I think that I'm trying to work with the third-party delivery companies to help offset your cost, find savings, finding ways like any other vendor. I don't cap, fees on chicken costs and delivery costs. And I don't go to our top food providers and say, hey, we're going to pass legislation to restrict your business. Like, that's why I have to be very careful. And I hope you guys understand on a bigger way that, I'd rather work with these companies and find and logically than look at trying to, cap them and do legislative, because I think you go legislatively, I think you really close a door where if we can find some of our better vendors in those categories that can work with you guys on a smaller scale to help you save money. Apologize, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but payroll inflation for restaurant workers needs to understand that our numbers are not staying this payroll. I agree. Liquor tax. Right now, that's something we're still looking into on the beverage side. Okay, Stephanie's. Stephanie, again, I would look at the National Restaurant Association about mandating vaccination for your staff. You definitely could go that route. I just caution everybody, even looking at businesses that have looked at doing it. I know the state has mandated in federal employees and things like that. Just what that means, I would definitely, if you're looking down that road, I think you need to have a conversation with Ryan O'Donnell on our team, which is a free consultation of the legal team, of just looking at the pros and cons of any decision that you make for your business. I totally feel for you as I read that just kind of shortly of what you're going through. But again, I also, drive that message home that, like, every decision that you make has, unintended consequences on both sides as we move forward. So I know we've probably been here about 60 minutes. It's 11:05, started right about this time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy to take other questions. But again, I just wanted to make sure we got through all of this and give you guys a lay of the land of where we are on August 9th, where we hope to be as we try to get through this, with all of the challenges you guys are still faced with. I feel it. I'm seeing it in kind of the calls I'm getting. Can see it here, with your questions that you're asking. But I guess looking at, let's see here. I know we don't normally do this, but now that we're kind of an hour out, I'm happy to allow anybody to unmute and ask a question or provide any guidance, if that makes it easier than writing in a long dissertation in the chat. So we are done, I guess, the full program, back to Q&A, but I'm here I'll stay on for at least another 10 or 15 minutes or so. If anybody wants to, feel free to unmute themselves and ask any questions that you guys have that maybe I missed, or maybe you missed as part of the program that I can help answer.
For the employer tax credit, do you have to request your payroll processing company to handle that, or do they do that automatically?
It depends, Donna. It's a great question. My advice to you is to work with your accountant, because really you kind of, it's the materials that you need from your payroll company. There are some payroll companies that will do it for you, if they haven't already. Or I've seen a lot of the accountants work with the payroll company together and get all those materials and who submits it in that process for ERTC. So we can get you more clarity on that. But I wouldn't just say, hey, we talked to our payroll company and they're going to get it for us. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable if that was the answer I'd like. I think you need to make sure, what are they submitting? I know that you have to be involved in that submitting process. Okay. So I also lean on your accountant too, because they're, we have some great accountants as part of us that would probably even talk to you free of charge to make sure that you've gone through the accurate process on ERTC.
Okay, and how far back in the quarters can you go?
I believe you can go back even into 2020. Don't quote me on that now, but I believe that as long as you can provide the information, I know you could definitely go all the way back to the beginning of this year. But I know when we were even looking at it at the CRA level on a smaller scale, when we were looking at it back in March, we could have gone back to 2020 date. So I don't want to give you misinformation, but I know you could definitely go back to the beginning of this year. And I believe you could still go back if you haven't filed already for the quarters of 2020.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem, Donna.
I
Other
have a quick
questions?
question.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi. So as far as the masking, because I have my two kitchen employees, one of them, our main chef at this point, who is afraid of getting the vaccination. I know my patrons are going to be wanting to ask if everyone's vaccinated. I've been very transparent with our customers in the community about what has happened to us and why we've had to close. And for what it's worth, I do want people to know that my patrons are very, very supportive of the fact that I've been transparent about this, not just for us, but for them and for the whole community. But I guess my main question to you is, if we can't, if there's a sticky situation with mandating vaccinations for our employees, which I know my customer is going to be asking about, can we mandate that everyone wear masks, including kitchen staff, and
100%.
those especially that aren't vaccinated?
You can do that right now, Stephanie. You can do that today.
I can. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm that. Okay.
So
Okay.
the mask mandate is a business decision. So even on May 19th, when they lifted all business restrictions, if you guys said,
Mhm.
hey, we feel comfortable that, patrons can make that decision, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated when they enter the building, but our staff, we are going to make a business decision that everyone's going to stay masked.
Yeah.
You as a business owner can do that. So to your staff and your employees, you can make that decision today for a masking side. Even, so even if someone's like, well, I'm vaccinated, no, it's your business, they're your employees. The customers is really where the sticky situation, because you also can mandate it to your customers. So even if you're not in New Haven, where you are down there in the Mystic area, Stephanie, you could say, starting today, just like Brewport put up, all customers entering our building and all of our staff are going to wear masks. And we're going to do that moving forward until we see, how this variant plays out. And that has been the case. Where was I? I was just at a restaurant last night. I stopped in for takeout. That's that up here in Granby. They made that decision. It's because their staff and their customers, you have to know your customers, but you also have to know your staff, and make the best decisions for you. And that gives you that authority to do that as a business owner from a mask side.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. Other questions?
Hey, Scott, it's Kevin. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. How you doing?
Good. I'm out in Montauk right now for a little vacation, and there's many restaurants out here that are experiencing this breakthrough variant, and they're all going through different versions of what do you do. And I'm lucky enough that in my restaurant, all of my staff, front of the house, back of the house, all wanted to get vaccinated, which I think is very good because it makes the public feel comfortable. And I'm just trying to sort of get a sense of what you're feeling here. I know you're out a lot. I sent an email out to all of my customers that are on our email list saying, letting them know that everyone is vaccinated. It was voluntary and everyone decided, but I want everyone to know. And we were recommending that customers that are not vaccinated, please get vaccinated before coming in, or wear a mask so we're protecting other customers and employees because of the Delta variant. And this is this kind of tricky line. I don't know where the tide is changing here exactly, or if it is or isn't, but I'd rather be ahead of it a little bit. So I'm just kind of asking, what's your sense? Do you feel like people will feel more comfortable when you put staff in masks? Has anyone reached out and said, don't come to our restaurant if you aren't vaccinated? And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying we strongly recommend that you get vaccinated, because listen, I happen to believe in the science. That's what I believe in. Get a vaccination. You're protecting yourself, your friends, your family, whoever you come in touch with. Just asking for a sense of what you hear.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a great question. I think I have yet to see a Connecticut restaurant do what Danny Meyer did, I guess. Let me answer that last part of your question, where, as you guys know, Danny in New York City is mandating that everyone He did it before Mayor de Blasio implemented the vaccination card process. He said, no one can get in my restaurant, no one can work in my restaurant. I just think that's a slippery slope. And that's really where I've kind of answered that question is like, there's people that maybe work for you that have religious beliefs on vaccinations that, you have the challenges with that. I think we can always sit here and say, yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm vaccinated. It was one of the first to get it when I was at my age appropriate. I promote it, as the head of the association, that it gets your businesses back on your feet. There's a reason why we never went below 50% indoor capacity like other states around us. It's because of how many people in Connecticut got a vaccine. I just think that, I'm 100% against the de Blasio conversation of them in New York City mandating vaccines to get into a gym or a restaurant. First of all, you're specifically targeting two business sectors, not others, which is just unreal to me. But I can also, I didn't talk about that. Commissioner Lehman was like, we will never do that. And they kind of, and I agree with that. I think that, we did such a great job of, not like I feel like when you start to say, hey, we're mandating it, if you want to come to our restaurant, I don't know. I don't know if you want to bring that. Well, I think that if you encourage it, if your staff have already gotten it and you're promoting it, I think that's a great thing. I think that, but you also, we're in the service industry where you want to allow everybody from all walks of life to be able to walk into your restaurant. And they have their own feelings and takes. And obviously you want to protect the other people around them. I get that. And that's maybe where the mask can do that. But, I think that I don't think we're going down a path of a vaccination card. I just, not in the state of Connecticut. I will oppose that. I think that it opens up so many other challenges that you're seeing in New York. You're seeing about 7, I think there's 7 now civil lawsuits that have been filed, discriminatory about what de Blasio is doing. And I think it hurts the industry overall, because then people are, it shines a negative light on what we've done and how hard you guys have worked to keep people safe, even when a vaccine wasn't even possible, when you couldn't even get a vaccine and we were open in, November, December, January, February, as opposed to now with how many people have been vaccinated, what we're doing. So that's my take. I mean, again, every day, as I see in New York and you see other states, what they're doing, how that's impacting the industry. I do think every town's different. Every sector of our state is different. I've been around now, the last 2 weeks. I was down in Stanford for my son's baseball tournament last week and saw, the kind of the little bit of blip of depending on what restaurant, what part of the town you were in. I was in Westbrook and Old Saybrook and Mystic on vacation last week and saw kind of what restaurants were doing, how people felt, but a lot of people still right now, are forgetting that they don't even have masks anymore. Like, oh my God, I gotta go back to my car. Oh, I gotta go, as they see signs. I think it's becoming where people just, that became vaccinated, stopped wearing masks, as opposed to I've had young kids, so they always have them. But I do think, my other fear is just the last thing we want to do is have more news that scares people, because I think the real facts here is if you have been vaccinated, you are in a very protected area. Could you still get the virus? Yes. Could you unfortunately still potentially die? But your percentages go woefully down, less than 1%, less than 0.001%. You have to have other challenges within you to potentially die or get seriously ill. And that's what the vaccine does. It protects you in a lot of ways. And I hope that also shows in the death rate. If you look at the numbers of how many people have died, we were at 0 days for so long. We've had a 1 or 2 or 3 uptick, but I think the media likes to point to right now the percentage of positivity rate, which I also think is skewed. Remember back in March and April, we were testing like 80,000 people a day. We're now only testing like 14, 15,000. So when you have a 3% positivity rate, if you were testing 70, 80,000 people, you would be nowhere near that. So I just think that's the other side of this conversation that, I don't think people are saying enough. I think that the media, unfortunately, is Delta variant, as opposed to you have a vaccine, you are safe, and going into a restaurant, you should feel safer than any other business, in my opinion. But I think it's a good question, Kevin. I think it's something that we have to continue to keep an eye on. I think you're seeing more and more folks grabbing masks, taking them with them, walking in, kind of going back to pre-May 19th dates. But, I I think the media also plays a big role in what the next 3 to 4 weeks are going to look like, besides just the numbers.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I know it's a very complicated issue. I have not seen our business drop off. I am out here seeing very busy restaurants with their business dropping off because there's a perception, at least, that people, I think they might go into a restaurant and get sick. I haven't seen that in my restaurant. I don't know what else you're seeing. My goal is to make sure that people feel, because it's a perception issue besides a reality issue. It's like, everybody's has gotten their shots, and you go into a restaurant, I think you feel safer. I think reaching out to customers saying, we are encouraging you to, because I happen to believe that this is a good thing, because I don't want to see some other variant kick up later, which could happen if this one doesn't get snuffed out. So it's a game of managing what we have now, but also managing what might happen in the future, because we really all don't know. I didn't know there was even going to be a variant, right? And that's the thing. If you don't get it, if you don't stop it here, what's the next iteration, which is, kind of looking down the path. So I'm just trying to manage it as best I can with being as proactive and also understanding what else you're seeing. So I know it's complicated, and thanks for answering it the best you
No,
can.
and the only other comment I'll give, Kevin, and people listening in too, is I'm a little frustrated. As I said to David, I do think, the general public needs to know the facts. I think they can make better decisions. I'm frustrated that some of our media outlets aren't promoting, the real numbers of vaccinated people. How many of the people that are hospitalized right now aren't vaccinated? Which I believe is in the over 90%.
Right.
Also, how long their hospital stays are, how their ages, all of these factors that play this role, because like Deidre, who, I know Dr. Manisha takes over in September, but Deidre is still in charge. And even David said to me, they provided guidelines. I think the Post did an article, or Hearst did an article on this, but I think it needs to be told more that, like, you should feel really safe if you've had the vaccine, and you should feel really safe about, your own self being protected and protecting others. Obviously, the mask, if you're vaccinated, is really just protecting other people. But those numbers don't lie of how very small, minute opportunity you would have of getting actually sick, even with the Delta variant, because you're protected with that. Even with the Pfizer, the Moderna, or the J&J vaccine, it's proven in in all the data that they have, and they need to tell that more, because then I think people will be less, oh my God, 3.4%. Oh my God, 20 more hospitalizations. Like, that's what people stick on. And it's like, well, like, can we just tell that data and let people react to it a little bit differently? And I think that's my frustration here, because it hurts our industry when that's all that's talked about. And it's not, hey, look at how many people are vaccinated, and look how many people actually that have been vaccinated that aren't actually going to the hospital, aren't even contracting the virus.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Maybe I answered a lot of them. Maybe I didn't. I know it's 11:20, so I appreciate everyone kind of staying on longer than normal, but I just wanted to make sure I answered some of the questions as we go forward. Stephanie, I agree with you. It's a slippery slope of, well, not all of our staff is vaccinated, but maybe there's a way to write it that, the vast majority, and we're working towards, vaccinating our entire staff, and they've been appreciative. Maybe there's a way to word it positively, that, because I think people and your customers need to know too, that a lot of your staff did get vaccinated, because that's one of the media messaging that I don't think has been told, that they feel like, oh, our demographic of our staff, didn't go get it, which I don't think is true by any stretch. So I think there's a way to maybe spin that in a positive way to your customers, than making those decisions. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. I wish we weren't talking about Delta variant or any of this stuff right now and mask mandates, but we are, and we have these challenges in front of us, and we have to try to fight to get through it, and we will do that. So you guys know, where to find me and my staff. We'll be sure to continue to keep you guys posted. As you can see, as you go back through this program, there's still a lot that we have to get done. I think this RRF replenishment is key. I think that, this tax relief, kind of more information we could do, other ways to make sure we continue to help you guys, get through these tough times. But I think the biggest thing is staying positive, using your social media, and telling the story of our industry and your restaurants, and thanking all of those that continue to support you. That matters, without question, as we try to get through the rest of the summer here. And let's be positive that these numbers start to flatten out. Let's hope for a great Monday of numbers. I haven't gotten a call from Lehman yet, but we'll see. I'll just leave it there. Yvette, I know you're still on. Is there anything else that I missed this morning in this, 80-minute webinar?
I think you got it, Scott. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you guys. This is recorded for others that need to listen in. Keep an eye on our emails. Please sign up for Serve Safe classes. Please continue to support the CRA and dues. I look forward to getting out to more restaurants here in the coming weeks, and seeing you guys face to face. And anything you guys need, where to find us. So thanks again, and I will see everybody soon.